welcome back to the Pre-Retiree Academy. Really happy that everybody is here. Today we are wrapping up our 8-week session. Had a lot of good interaction with people. I've answered some questions on the way, and I've saved a few, answered some and saved a few that we'll go over that some of you participants have asked and cover some of those specifically, because I thought they were good questions, and other people probably have the same questions on their mind if you did as well. So today we're just really kind of completing all these little things that we've done and bringing it back to kind of give you that better, stronger foundation of retirement. And also know that none of this, you have to fully absorb. Obviously, in that 8-week period, all of the content is saved. Sarah's done an amazing job of getting that put up on the website that's on the screen there. That will stay up indefinitely until really about January of next year. We'll start putting all this together again for next year's series. So also want to implore that everybody on the call has an opportunity to set up a one-on-one call with myself to kind of discuss personal issues or anything that you've come across. If nothing else, you just want to look another pair of eyes to look at what you've come up with and where you're at so far, then obviously that we're here for that. We're here to kind of help you make those good decisions so you'll be ready for retirement. So, in review, we have to understand that there are various sources of income that come and we're going to utilize in retirement. The trick of all this is to take a lifetime of savings from our working years and add that to various streams of income that we get via maybe Social Security, pensions, or other things like that. We have to figure out, though, how to combine those type of streams of income with our savings and create a stream of income for life. And so, Social Security Administration puts out studies every year. This is the most recent that was available for us, was released in 2016. There's another one that should be coming out again, but 62% of income comes from your own sources, your own savings. Traditionally, you might have heard 50 to 55% of that is the case, but it seems to be that the majority of income comes from that. Other outside sources might include pensions, whether it be military or one offered through your work if you're a teacher, or those kind of things, or have done some of that. Social Security being one of those. So it's really important to kind of understand that all of this combines, as always, for those those questions that we've had to ask. And what are they? How much do I need? How much money do I need to live the way that we want to live or continue to live that we're accustomed to? When do we need it? When do we start need to pull from those savings and assets? And the last one, of course, is for how long. But if you really look at this chart, it really shows that people with an income of about $72,000 a year or more can count on Social Security for just only about 15% of that. That's really what that you get from that. So make sure that you've identified your sources of income for you if you haven't already. Your money's going to come to you after you retire. Social Security, pensions and retirements, income from assets. There are a lot of people on this call that have some rental properties. I talked to a lot of you participants about that. Those are income streams that you can utilize, obviously, for that. You can sell those assets and create income streams via lump sum or reinvesting, those kind of things. Income from earnings. Don't discount this. I got a question last week that I probably should cover better, but what if I decide to keep working? And I'll address that more detail a little bit later. But often what I've found with working with people that are stepping into retirement, most everybody that gets to that, they're all ready to step away from the daily grind. But as they get closer to it or actually just step into it, they really have a hard time of finding ways to replace their time in a more meaningful and purposeful way. So I have a lot of clients and participants that I work with that really step into retirement and then find another alternative part-time, albeit if that stream of income. So income from earnings can still be in play in retirement. Some people might call that semi-retirement and those kind of things, but don't discount that. It's important that everybody settles in their own way. Some people are ready to step away and be done. I totally get that, but others kind of miss the socialization fact, really just the manner of like either serving others or solving problems and those kind of things. So don't feel bad if you get to it and you're like, you know what, I really want to do something. Find something that will do that. It will only help you in the long run. So, at the beginning of this, we all talked about that it all starts with your current budget, and you're going to need to create a budget. Hopefully, you already done that, and I'm sure most of you have. But it's important to keep in mind that your expenses can and do change. So remember, a budget is just a plan, a spending plan. We have to review that, excuse me, on a regular basis, so we understand if those changes and what they can possibly if they could possibly affect what the trajectory of your of what your stream of income is going to be, say, not necessarily 1 to 3, 5 years. It's really more the concern of like 15, 20 years and those kind of things. I'm really big we talked about the distribution planning, but I'm really big on using your current budget to create your retirement spending plan. You need to account for all the inflows of income that you do have and the outflows of expenses that you will have as well. And so really important, it all starts with a budget. I know it's not the most fun part of it, but it's something that's really important that we continue to kind of maintain and work. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the basis for your retirement budget can be made up with just really three main components: your current monthly expenses, and yes, there are fixed and variable expenses on that. Fixed might be what you average on food and your cell phone bill and your internet and TV and those kind of things. Variable might be things like gas, energy, consumption of those, as well as like expenses that come from time to time, HVAC repair and upkeep and those kind of things, just as examples. It's really harder to account for those variable expenses. So it's really important that you just account for something. And as your budget and you review your budget, you'll realize if you were too rich, meaning you put too much on a certain expense, or you're under on that on a consistent basis. And all we can really do is average what we think those expenses will be over time. Really, your retirement expectations, and hopefully all of you all have given this thought before you step into retirement. What kind of lifestyle would you like to have? Are you going to travel a lot? That might require additional capital, obviously more than what you've been used to in terms of. So you might be replacing maybe certain things with extra travel, or maybe it's going to be simple. And then obviously your expected monthly income that comes from things like Social Security and or your pensions. And if you really just keep it on those subject lines, then it will really tell you a whole lot. When it comes to that budget, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we did the first time, but really it's needs. Those are things that we have to have. Wants, those are things that we would want to have, and sometimes we want it all the time, but it doesn't always work that way. So we have to kind of make sure the needs align up with what we're able to do in a safe manner. Wants are like vacations, dining out on a regular basis, entertainment, travel, and then savings. But this is as you're stepping into it. Once you retire, obviously, future savings is not really necessary. And on that point, I have a lot of people that are a lot of participants that I've worked with that are and clients, in fact, that are so budget conscious. They're so used to saving money from their income and putting it here or putting it there and doing it in a meaningful manner. And that is a mindset that a lot of you will have to or should switch. Um, because you're only pulling out what you need to in order to meet all of those things, there is no extra savings. The savings part of your life is done. And it might shock you to know the amount of people that I deal with as clients or participants that I have to talk them out of that they take out more money than what they need. And then they just put the difference in a savings account like it's for later. Keep in mind your savings, whether it be in your retirement or otherwise, is accessible at any time in your retirement. So there's no need to pull out more than you need in any given year, because all you're going to do is end up paying more tax on it unless you have a plan for that. But I have a lot of them that say, well, it's because I've always done it that way. Yeah, but you're the phase of which you're bringing your money in has changed. It's not coming from earned income and those kind of things. So important to keep those kind of things. As I've said before, it's always nice when you are working on a budget to kind of track a net worth statement. It's really important to have this as retirees, anyways, because you know at any given time about what the state of your investments are in terms of your balances. And so, for projection things and distribution planning, having those numbers handy on a regular basis is good. But what it does for the budgeting process, it really allows you to kind of see either sacrifices that you're making before to get to retirement, or how your spending looks comparatively speaking by tracking this net worth statement. And I would say if you have debt, you still have a bit of a mortgage or whatever as you're going into retirement, it's all the more reason to track it. So that way, if you're paying extra on it, you know exactly where you're at, and you can account for the asset that is your house. Just doesn't bring you that income stream the same way. So net worth statement, assets minus liabilities, really, really good to track that from as you're budgeting going towards retirement. So I always like to talk about there's things that we can and can't control. When it comes to retirement and withdrawing. We talked about the three questions. Obviously, the last one, for how long are you going to be drawing it? That's longevity. Not knowing if you're going to be here 5, 10 years or 35 years is a challenge. In fact, if we knew that, this would be fairly simple. But we don't. And we have to plan that we're going to be here for way longer than we think. I think that's just the prudent thing to do to make sure that you're okay. It's just another way of living below your means, which all of us have had to do our whole lives. That's why you're able to have saved in a disciplined manner for retirement. And a lot of those behaviors will continue. We can't control investment returns. However, your strategy should be flexible enough to account for market fluctuations. It's a little easier today. The good news is than it was 2 years ago. You can take a lot less risk and get a decent return from a fixed income standpoint. Obviously, interest rates are higher, but that allows you to get paid a little bit more than you did 2 years ago. And it's actually well above what expected inflation would be. And so things like your bond portfolios or your bond portions of that, they're not there just to give you that return. They're there to provide safety and longevity and steady, constant returns over a period of time. And they act differently than the equity markets do most of the time. Inflation, obviously, we know that we can't control this. It blew my mind, and I guess it really didn't. But when you see numbers, I think you're acutely aware of it. But I read an article the other day that the average cost of food for a household of 4 went up almost $11,000 last year. 11,000. That is inflation. It's all it happened in a short period of time. And yes, we have recency bias. So the most recent forms of inflation that we've experienced, we kind of tend to think it's going to be like that in that manner all the way. But keep in mind, in the years before that, we often had negative inflation or no inflation at all, and prices were steady. And we will return that in the average over time is about 2.5% year over year. what the Federal Reserve's target is as well. So inflation we can't control. There are ways to help offset that. We'll talk about that in a second. Future expenses, obviously, accounting for the unknown is a challenge. But let's just go on and budget for the unknown, and you could put the categories unknown, healthcare cost, all those things. But really important to kind of make sure that we account for those things the best that we can, even though we can't control it. So in talking about withdrawal strategies, I don't know if you all were on that call or saw that video. It's really good ones. A lot of different ways that you can kind of start pulling money out, methodologies you can do it. But how you get the money out of your retirement strategy is just as important as how you saved it, particularly from your risk side. Just as a quick review, I'm not going to go over everything, but most of you have most of your retirement, I would say, in a 401k, a 403b, and or a pension accounts through your employers. If you were to leave it in there and you take money out, then you will trigger fees every time you take withdrawals in those accounts. I think some of this will change over the future, but as it is today, most, if not all, record keepers charge fees for withdrawals. And some of them have limitations on how often you can withdraw. That is actually a plan specific thing. So one plan to the other, that's going to be way different, but it might only be semi-annually or even yearly in some cases. So something to consider there. It's very provider specific, plan specific. I would contact your custodian and see exactly what those plans are. I have access to all that information. So if you had questions about that, feel free to reach out to our team as well. You'd have to contact the custodian to see if they can do direct deposits. All that is very fluid. If you leave it in the 401k or 403b, the mandatory withholding, the industry standard, is 20% of taxes are withheld on that. Meaning that even if you are in a tax bracket that is under that, they're going to withhold 20%. No matter if you're, let's say, in the 14% tax bracket, they're going to be 20. And if you overpay, you'll get a return. And then the good thing about leaving it with a 401k is that they can help you determine what your required minimum distributions are. IRAs, typically when it comes to withdrawing money, there are no fees with that. I do stress typically because there are some that might, but in most of the custodians that I deal with, we have two on the wealth management side that we deal with, particular that are big. Neither one of them charge fees, along with a numerous amount of others, but there are some that could, maybe smaller shops that do. So no fees for withdrawal. So that's a pro and check on that category if you were to ask me. You can set up periodic distributions for whatever you want. So in other words, you could have a monthly withdrawal that comes directly from your IRA over to your checking account. People often ask me if I had a preference of how to do it. That would be it, because you're withdrawing your money out closer to the manner in which you put it in. You're putting it in every 2 weeks. If you're on a bi-weekly paycheck, you're pulling out once a month. I think that's good. The market's going to go up or down. If you have to pull it out on a yearly basis and the market is down, then there's some money there that doesn't have a chance to get repair or recover, I should say, if the market dips. And oftentimes the market dips during the year and recovers. So we can definitely cover those kind of things too as well. Let me make sure we don't have any, nothing in the chat. Let's see here. Oh, Q&A. Let's look real quick. Can you move money? So can you move a company 401k to an IRA upon retirement? Is there a benefit to do that other than what's on this slide? The answer to your question is yes. You can do a rollover, a tax-free rollover from one record keeper directly to an IRA. Is there an advantage to doing so other than the stuff on this slide? Well, I would say this: if you already have an existing IRA, or you have there are quite a few participants that I would say that have not rolled all of their 401ks from past employers together. An IRA certainly will make it easy for you to put it all in one place. Theoretically, you could roll that money from old employers to your current. So that's not, withstanding. So it's not absolute. But if you already have an IRA set up, it's easy to roll into it. Is there anything more than the side? Well, not necessarily. Fees are typically, there are none for withdrawals. The investment expense depends on really the IRA, or if someone's managing it or not. A lot of things in terms of that. Group plans usually have a little bit cheaper investment offerings than what IRAs do, but I just say usually because there's so many dependent variables there that matter. And then you can also withdraw from an IRA as you want to, but a lot of plans do offer that as well. If they have up to like monthly distributions, you can take out whenever you needed to, not necessarily on a regular basis. So very, very similar to that. The other pro I would say as well is that you can pick what your tax withholding is if you want to withhold at all. So if you're in a 14% marginal tax rate, then yes, you can definitely do that. So let's see. Okay. So yeah, I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other than fees are usually what I'll look at first, followed by what your overall investment expense is in terms of doing that. And that's kind of how I make the decision. There are plans allowed for the monthly withdrawal, so it's not an issue if you're in one of those. If you're in a yearly one, then I would probably lean in most cases to the IRA. But again, all of this is a little bit different. So let's talk about withdrawal strategies. I'm not going to go into the big details of all of this, but the 4% rule, it's where you withdraw 4% of your retirement savings in your first year of retirement. And in subsequent years, you might tack on an additional 2% of what you pulled out to offset for inflation. Drawbacks to the 4% rule is that, it's 4% of what your balance is. So your balance can fluctuate and will fluctuate. So as your account value goes down 4%, you might have to be forced to live on a little bit less, which also leads us to the next one of the fixed dollar withdrawal. Fixed dollar, you pull out the same amount each time from that. But if your expenses go up on that side, then you might have to learn on how to cut in order to do that. But it is very simple and easy to follow. Fixed percentage. There's no really set percentage set to this, but it kind of goes along with the 4% rule. But again, how much you take out, whether it be 4% or 6%, if you're able to do that on an annual basis, it will that number as a dollar figure will fluctuate as your account balance fluctuates a bit from systematic withdrawals. That's just where you only withdraw income from like dividends and or interest off your investment. So really just the underlying income or interest that your investments make. That's a great one, but you have to have a pretty significant amount of money saved up for it to work, to replace the income that most people want. But everybody is different in terms of that as well. And then bucket strategy. That's what, the one that I use most cases, where you withdraw assets from 3 different buckets. So you would have a perfect world, an equity bucket, a bond bucket, and maybe a cash. You might even have more buckets than that, but just in terms of simplistic example. To me, when you do that bucket strategy, having your fixed income bucket be a multiple of what your annual spending is going to be is ideal. And one way for you to really take away a little bit of the fluctuation portion, because if you have 10 years of income in bonds, then it's really going to be more like 14, 15 in some cases with what bonds are paying today. So that means you have your income needs are met. Your basic income needs are met for the next 10 to 14 years. And yes, you have to refill that up over time, but that's where you make adjustments to your portfolio. If your equities have grown, then you peel off some of that and put that back into the bonds or cash, so on and so forth. So, and then you can mix and match these. You can do a 4% rule and not do standard living. You could do 4% rule straight away, like we discussed. You can do a fixed withdrawal with the investments being more like a bucket strategy. There is no right or wrong answer on it. Check and see. Oh, I answered that one. Okay. So it's also important in relation to deciding how you're going to take your distribution is really evaluating that risk. Um, risk when we're saving doesn't really matter a lot, but risk when we start to take money out really does, and drops in the value of your portfolio prior to the either prior just prior to retirement or soon after retirement can dramatically reduce your chances that your savings might be able to support your retirement. So, it's prudent to look at this if you're in that 5-year window. That doesn't mean you're going to make a change immediately, but if you're inside that 5-10 year window to retirement, it is prudent to start looking if now is a good time to start levering down your risk. If you don't, then I'm going to pull this up on the screen. This is what's known as sequence of return risk. And so you have 3 portfolios, and a lot of times we'll start second guessing our timing because the market goes up and down. When your losses occur really matter. And so this is 3 different portfolios, and they're taking out the same amount of money, and they're all making the same amount of return over this 25-year period here. So and that's 7%. But what happens is portfolio A, they get their returns in year 1, 22%, year 2, 15, year 3, 12, and then it goes negative for those. So you can see in the orange, it goes up, 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 because in year 5 later down the road, there's not a real giant impact there. Portfolio B is where it kind of steady across the board in terms of what your average returns are. Obviously, that's right in the middle. But look at portfolio C. If we just reverse what happened up here on portfolio A, and we reverse them in terms of losses. So we have 7% loss first year, 4%, then it goes to 12, 15, 22 positive. You would think that would be good. But what happens is early in retirement, because you're pulling money out during those periods of losses, it really changes the amount of money that you will have 25 years from now. All 3 investments ended with the same values, but their experience of getting there is quite a bit different. So if you look at this down here, here's actually the return pattern that we did from above. So you can see here at age 65, you start taking it out. What happens is because you don't have any compounding power early in your retirement, because you were, you had those big losses early on and you didn't make changes. So you could run out of money versus this is portfolio A, the losses come later. It keeps it kind of steady and up and through life expectancy. So really important one in terms of that. Let me get back to my, okay. So really important with that as well. What I would say is if you are in 5 years of retirement and you haven't looked about changing your risks, now's the time to do so. That doesn't mean you go to no risk. It just means that you go from growth to maybe balanced, or a balanced moderate or lower, maybe conservative. It all depends on the spending for me in terms of what you go to. It's more of a math problem as well. So lever down your risk if you haven't, pretty important. Let's see. Whatever mix of stocks and bonds that you elect, you really want to think about that overall allocation, what it's going to be when you retire, the mix makes sense. How long is your savings projected to last, during with a balanced return, taking less risk? How comfortable are you seeing volatility in that, and really what your aggregate sources of income are going to really be? But as a practical manner, many people enter retirement with somewhere between 40 and 60% of their saving in stocks. Social Security, remember, if you have a 10-year or more horizon to retirement, you need to check and see what your Social Security is going to be. Remember, it's just designed to be a safety net. So it's really important to kind of understand what that piece of your puzzle is going to look like. And if it's lower than you thought, then it's going to be, incumbent on you to save even more to kind of replace those income needs. Social Security strategies, really, it's kind of like this. I'm only going to go through a couple of these, but the basic principles: the longer you defer your benefits, the larger monthly benefits grow. So each year you delay Social Security from 62 to age 70, where it caps, your benefit goes up by roughly 8%. If you're still working, it actually goes up more than that because you're still putting your taxes and income into it. And so it really does grow more than actually 8%. Really, waiting is a function of really what you think your life expectancy is, what your spousal benefit might look like, those kind of things. If there's a big age gap between you and your spouse, then delaying is generally a really good one, that I've come across it. So really, this benefits with people that are a shorter retirement period, in terms of when they're going to start taking it, because it will offset that by giving you more by waiting. This is delaying. Let's say this is shorter life expectancy, so taking it earlier. Sorry, going back on that one. Taking this one a bit earlier. If you have an illness and you don't think you're going to live longer, then taking that early might be beneficial to you. But it's also a little bit different depending on where in your spouse, because you have to kind of think about those things in both cases. It really, if you're not going to live longer, taking it earlier would be better. If you're unsure about it, or there is um, uh, a bigger path, a bigger age difference between you and your spouse, or big income difference between you and your spouse, then delaying that in most cases makes the most sense on everything that I've done with clients before. I rarely tell people to wait to 70, but I generally tell people in these situations, if there's a big age gap or you make a lot more money, to at least get to full retirement age, which for most people is between 66 and 67 today. When to take it? This is kind of based on an average of salary of 45,000. So if you take it at 62, it's going to look like 1,300. If you take it at 16.7, which is close to full retirement age, it's going to be about 1,850. And if you delay it, then obviously you get the full benefit of that as well. And in terms of salaries that are closer to 80,000, you kind of have to look at those things and see how that fits in your piece as well. Oh, okay. Karis, that's a good point. I'm sorry, Karis, I did have it up on the wrong screen. So what we're going to do is go back real quick. And I'll put it over to the wrong screen. That's right. I'm sorry. That is my fault. Okay. So here's what I was talking about before. I'm just going to revisit this real quick. But you can see in these three different portfolios, this first one, look at the sequence of these. These are the returns that they had over a 5-year period. Up 22%, up 15, up 12, then down 4, down 7. This portfolio had static returns of 7. We kind of know how that's going to look like. And then portfolio C had the losses earlier in its portfolio. Now they all had the same average return, which is 7%. But what happens is the sequence of which those losses come. So this is really come to say that this is really to stress that you don't want to take too much risk too early, because if you take more risk and the market goes down, then you will participate in more of those losses, particularly on the equity side. So if you look, this is the portfolio that's up here. So you can see no matter kind of what, it's kind of levered up and down. And then, and after this term, they have, taking out $60,000 a year on this, they still end up in 25 years with $1,000,001 in terms of that. But if you start here and you're taking 60,000 out of the same exact portfolio as above, and you have those losses earlier where those losses can't recover because you spent them, you've taken it out, it's gone. So as you do that, your spending power over the longer term completely gets eroded because of those losses you had early on. Now, if you're properly structured, I'm not telling you to take zero risk because there's risk in that alone as well. But when you look at it from this perspective, if you are aggressive early on and you have some of these big drops, it can impact how long that money lasts if you're pulling money out. Now, if you're not pulling money out, then it's really no different than kind of where you were up here even. But once you start taking money out, it really does matter when those losses occur. So thanks for letting me know that. I apologize on that. Well, okay, that's where we were before. So, estate planning. So why do we do it? I hope everybody had a chance to watch Lyle and the interview that we did. It's always one of the most popular. Don't have the analytics in terms of how many people have clicked on it and watch it. And I had time to kind of look at that. We usually do that in the weeks after we close this thing up. But why do we do it? Well, it's really for you to have a say, a big say, the only say in what happens to yourself, your loved ones, and your assets when you cannot. It's very important that if you don't have it, then the probate judge is going to decide all of those things, including the guardianship of your children, who the assets are distributed to, who's put in charge, all of those things. If you set all of this up, it will, number one, save money. It will spell out your wishes. And if it's done properly, accordance to the law, the judge will make sure that all of that is executed the way you wanted it to in probate. And it sets up a structure that minimizes conflicts with family members and allows for a smoother transition upon your death, unfortunately. It also foregoes opportunities to save taxes, protect assets, if you don't have a plan at all. And then, as Lyle pointed out, he routinely has situations with family member disputes. So, what does an estate plan include? In no uncertain rhyme or reason, these are all things that it could include: a durable power of attorney. We like to say a power of attorney in the event of incapacitation. Healthcare power of attorney. That's if decisions need to be made and you aren't able to make them. A will, advanced healthcare directive. That's for like organ donation or end of life care. Some states have memorandums of trust or statements of disposition of tangible property. Revocable trust. We talked a lot about that. Very simple way for you to convey and have everything that you want to. The retitling of your assets is big in order to make sure that the assets are properly titled into the trust that you've created. Beneficiary designations. This is estate planning. So on all of your IRAs, on all of your 401ks and 403bs, all of you have beneficiary designations. Make sure those are up to date. Make sure that's who you want them to be, because in just pretty much every state, those beneficiary designations will supersede any wills that you have created. Guardianship designations, all done through wills and living wills, as well as if you need a life insurance trust. I'm seeing those, quite frankly, quite a bit, I should say, with several clients and those kind of things. See here. Stop for the Q&A. No new questions, it looks like here. Okay. Let's talk about beneficiary designations. Like I said before, they supersede wills, and it's very important to keep those up. So how often should you do it? I would say at least once a year, you should go into your account and review. That's who you want them to be, and make sure they are the right ones. In the any life event, let's say your spouse was your beneficiary, and your spouse passed away, then you need to probably go and switch your contingent beneficiaries to be your primary, and then maybe perhaps have a new a contingent one as well. For a lot of people, retirement is the largest liquid asset, and it can delay if you don't have a beneficiary filled out. And I promise you, whoever's name is on that list, whoever you put on there, that is who is going to get that money. So make sure it's who you want it to be. Ex-wives, lots of things I've seen that are very sad just because we didn't take the time to do that. Children can be beneficiaries. They're generally entitled to receive distributions once they've turned 18. Trust works well for the beneficiary of life insurance, probably better than it does for the 401ks and IRAs, because IRAs are already tremendously protected as far as the law is concerned. And just be cautious about naming who a trust is a beneficiary to retirement plan. That's where you need to really lean on your estate planning professional and or an attorney for those type of decisions. Life insurance, that we just sent out an easy reading sheet on that. So things that you'll need to do if you still have it is decide if you want to keep it. A lot of people, if it's a permanent policy, a whole life or universal life, then there's no reason to get rid of it. There is reason to check those policies to see if you need to continue to pay them. Perhaps maybe your cash value is built up large enough to where you can quit making payments and it still lasts your foreseeable life expectancy and still pay out that. I won't get into too much, but if you have questions about that, we can talk about that in a one-on-one. Really, if you have a term policy, then you just need to decide, okay, do you want to keep it just to help create an additional estate? But most term policies will adjust and jump after a certain period of time in age, and they become very expensive. And if you have no debt and you're mostly liquid, then there's very little reason to keep them all in all. So I usually tell people, if they're not very expensive, keep paying them until the premiums jump after your fixed period is over, or whatever age your policy might actually take a jump. And then you can make the decision to pay it or not. More than likely, there's really no reason to if you're already in good shape. This can help people protect income in retirement in terms of replacing that. And if you have debt after your retirement and that could carry on through death, then that's what a great reason to have life insurance to shore it up. So again, it's not mandatory you keep these things. If you're mostly liquid and debt free, then it's really a personal decision based on how much you're paying out for those things. Real quick view of Medicare. So what you should consider when deciding to enroll in Medicare. Most people don't pay anything for Part A. You no longer contribute to an HSA if you have Medicare, but if you do have an HSA, you can use those until it's exhausted in the future. So the money that you have saved in it, it's not gone for nothing. You can use it for prescription medicines and copays and those kind of things if you want to. You're not eligible for marketplace premium tax credits. Then yeah, let's not worry about that in terms of that. Let's see. Automatic enrollment. So once you turn 65, you'll get a notice that will give you the ability to automatically enroll and put in it. If you're still working, it's still important to do that and have that out of the way. So whenever you do retire and do that, you can qualify for Medicare based on disability. If you're on Social Security disability, or if you have ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, or kidney failure, are all reasons that you can get on Medicare early as well. If you enroll for Social Security, you will automatically be enrolled into Medicare as well. I encourage everybody to go watch that video. It ran a little longer than we wanted it to with Mike Grove, but Mike did a really good job of explaining the differences in terms of, especially like Medicare Advantage. We spent quite a bit of time on that, and I'm happy to help refer you to anybody if you're looking for some questions and stuff on those as well. So just some 7 key retirement deadlines that I think everybody ought to be aware of. So if you're age 50, because some people that are actually watching this or enrolled in pre-retiree, most of the plans it's 55 and up, but we do have a couple that have been elected to do it for people age 50. Remember, if you're age 50 and older, you can put in more than the IRS regular limit of 23,500. You can now qualify for a catch-up contribution, which is an additional 6,500, I believe it is, might be 7. So you're able to definitely do that. 59 and a half, no more early penalty, any early withdrawal penalty for 401ks and or IRAs. So you're free to withdraw at 59 and a half should you want to. Yeah, there's some other things you can do even if you're not going to quit working at 59 and a half, but we'll leave those for individual conversations as they make more sense in that setting. 62 is the very early age that you can take the early Social Security payouts if you want to. 65 is when you need to apply for Medicare. 66 to 67 for everybody on this call, and in between, there's people on this call where your full retirement age is technically 66 and 8 months. So that's when you reached full retirement age. The rules change in terms a bit if you're still working and want to start taking your Social Security. It's not at a reduced rate based on income anymore once you kind of get to there. And then the maximum benefit that you get in Social Security is at age 70. And then it's actually moved up to 73. I need to update this. Is your RMD age. On RMD is a required minimum distribution. We talked about that in the tax video. That is the age at which the government gives you, based on your age, an amount that you have to take out each year, and it escalates as you get older as well. A couple of questions before we get going. I get questions a lot. What are the benefits of working with a financial advisor? Really, number one, an objective approach to everything. It's very difficult when we are on here. It's very difficult to be objective about our own money sometimes, because it's emotional. It's ours. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, and so sometimes we get clouded by those judgments. Very difficult. I think from a financial planning basis is where it's really valuable to work with an advisor to make sure that you're spending in between X and Y, and then what that looks like. You can build any scenario. If something happens to your spouse, what does that look like for the surviving spouse? If and vice versa. Risk management, obviously, in building and constructing proper portfolios in terms of risk. Working with an advisor is very, very beneficial. Obviously, there's fees that are involved in that, but that's where you have to work with an advisor and kind of understand and decide if you think that's going to be worth it. Distribution planning, tax planning, and really the biggest reason that while people hire an advisor is a peace of mind. Some of this stuff might be foreign to them. They don't want to do it. I have plenty of clients that have started and really early in retirement did it all on their own, but they were worried that if something happened to them, their spouse would be very anxious, cause a lot of anxiety, and be stressed out and not really understand what to do. And so they hire an advisor really just for legacy purposes and those kind of things. Obviously a lot of benefits. In terms of financial planning, this is a sample of what it would look like. This is a net worth statement that all of our clients have within our financial planning software. It just really breaks down what your assets at any given time. We have it directly linked to the investment account, so those are in real time in terms of what the value of that is. We build lifetime cash flows for people. So these two people is our age. This is John and Sally Client, I think their name is, and John 64, Sally 62. They've got an income of 164,000, this is what their total expenses are, including taxes. This is how much their savings and the total of those kind of things. And you can kind of see once they start retiring, you can see 2 years from now, they're planning on retiring at 66. Their income goes from 164 to 12,608. They have total basic expenses. Oh, sorry. Gosh, sorry. They have total basic expenses of $73,511, including taxes, and they'll have to pull from their savings about $61,000 a year. We can go, in a perfect world, you scroll down and see about how long that money will last. You can predict what their required minimum distributions are going to be, and so on and so forth. And really, more importantly, you can build any scenario that you want to. You can add income, you can add additional expenses, one-time expenses, gifts, change growth rates, retirement ages, living expenses, Social Security audits, Monte Carlo analysis, and those kind of things. This is just stuff that we offer in terms of our clients, charitable planning, Social Security planning, stress testing, all of those kind of things. Won't say it. So let's talk about real quick before I get to any other questions. These are a few of the questions that I've gotten from people. So let's talk about that. So the first question I received are, what are some of the major pitfalls or mistakes that people make in retirement? Well, not having a plan, or not having your risk planned, or taking appropriate risk as you're moving into retirement. That's a huge one I've seen a lot. Sadly, in most cases, well, I would say in most cases it turned out okay, but in a couple of cases it elongated when someone had to, they had to go back to work, or they had to wait to retire because of not addressing that risk a little bit in a more prudent manner. And if there's a significant, market drop while you're taking those distributions, it can really shorten the life and how long those funds last. So I would say the first major pitfall is just not doing any planning whatsoever, and the second one is not addressing your risk. So that would be number one. Number two, let's see here. Let's see. Nope. How often should I assess my retirement plan? Let's see. Oh no, wait, hold on. Let me get a couple more of those other ones. Other pitfalls I see people making on that. Sorry, I had to look at my notes here. Estate planning, not having an estate plan, a succession plan. No one likes to think about that, but not having that costs them that. Claiming Social Security too early. That would be another pitfall I see. And the reason for that is often people don't think they're going to live as long as they do, and it locks into the amount that they get. And it can really cause some stress down the road, even though Social Security does get cost of living adjustments. And then lastly, not planning for the unexpected, not properly planning for healthcare costs, not understanding that is going to cover a significant more than what they're used to at some point in time. So really, that's it. So not really taking into account your risks, not planning from an estate standpoint and a risk standpoint, claiming Social Security too early, and then not planning for unforeseen circumstances. How often should I assess my own financial plan that I put together? At least once a year. It kind of goes along the same line of estate planning. At least once a year, or after any major life event. And I define that as death, divorce, um, after you buy or sell a house, big purchases, those kind of things. Um, Always re-examine your income needs. So understand how much you're spending, what you're spending it on. Um, Always look at those risk tolerance on a yearly basis, as well as the beneficiaries of all that stuff. So once a year or more is good. If I work longer or part time, is that beneficial? Yes, um, for a lot of reasons. Let's start Social Security. If you continue to work longer, either in your current job or even a part time job, that will improve your Social Security calculations and pension calculations of the company that you work for, because you continue to pay into those things. Delaying taking Social Security by working longer is good because you get a larger monthly benefit from Social Security. There's fewer years to fund your retirement when you work a little bit longer or you take in that part-time job. Even the part-time job really offsets a portion of how much you're going to be pulling out. And so it really changes how much you need to pull out and when you're going to pull it out. So it's really shortens the years that you have to fund your own retirement by working part-time. And then it also gives you the opportunity to save more should you want to or need to. So going back to the life insurance question, do I need to keep my life insurance if I'm liquid with no debt? I would say first, it depends on the policy type. In general, if you retire and you don't have any issues paying your bills or making ends meet, it's likely you don't need that insurance any longer, especially if you don't have any debt. Um, but in terms of if you have a permanent policy, certainly looking at how long you can go without paying those premiums is worth it. Last one, and I get this one quite a bit, at least in one-on-one calls. Um, will Social Security run out? Without a doubt, everybody on this call has concerns about that. You've undoubtedly heard that Social Security has been struggling due to things like demographic changes, people living longer. I would say it's really, really unlikely that anybody on this call has an effect from their benefits. It's unlikely they're to go away. Um, if you're at retirement age right now, I think you're really good. However, there are possibilities if the government doesn't act on certain things that there could be some reductions. I still don't see that happening for a lot of reasons. Um, and the reason for that is even with the massive amount of people that are going to retire, the millennial generation with Generation X, and even beyond is larger than what's pulling it out. So, you know, there's enough money being funded to pay all the payments that are coming out. Most of the news of what you hear is on the Social Security Trust Fund, which is projected to run out of money somewhere around 2035, depending on who you ask. Um, there are some reasons that it could go earlier, but the trust is not, it gets confused a lot. It is not the mechanism in which sends you your payments. The trust helps fund things like disability, um, uh, uh, cost of living adjustments to some extent, um, and really doesn't fund any of the payments that are being made to people right now. It definitely needs to be fixed for a lot of reasons, and I would say there's already some legislators that are brave enough to kind of go on and start addressing this. And there are definitely ways that can be fixed without impacting anybody that's about to retire or has retired, and really uh, small changes that could really fix it in the long run. To me, based on what I've read, I think the most likely scenario is that there's going to be on the employer side maybe a percentage increase that they have to pay in first, followed by um, uh, the workers having to maybe put in another 0.5% themselves, and then there's always the possibility that they increase the age of full retirement age yet again. But we'll have to wait and stay tuned on those kind of things. let's see here. Any other questions? I got the Q&A open now. Um, really, you know, this isn't rocket science. It's really getting over the what can be overwhelming, which is gathering the information and then kind of knowing what to do with that. Um, so, you know, just do the planning, start somewhere. You don't have to be perfect and have it all together right away. You just have to start. I can help simplify that if you want to reach out for a one-on-one meeting. And I'm happy to help that. It's a lot more productive when we do those meetings. The fact that you'll have a bit of this foundation, because you'll know more of what I was going to ask during those meetings anyway, which is, you know, tell me about your income, tell me about your savings. I can see your 401k, but do you have outside savings? How much are you planning on spending? All of those kind of things. And it will help make those conversations more productive. Then we can do some projections and you know, quick calculations that I can show you on the computer, like reverse amortization and inflation analysis and those kind of things. And so we can kind of see if there's going to be an issue, if you need to do something different than what you're planned on doing so far, and doing that. But thank you for taking the time, obviously, for doing all of that and participating in this. We have a tremendous amount of respect for the employers that we serve and moreover the participants. It's the whole reason we kind of do all this stuff. Um, and I, I I know it can be a lot. It is for me too sometimes. But it is really just important to kind of get your hands around that. I'm gonna leave this open for a couple more minutes of questions. Someone have any question at all that they feel is good? Doesn't look like it. Direct message or otherwise. So if there were three things that I would take away, if you want to simplify all this, figure out how much money you're going to need, when you're going to retire, and then when you're going to start pulling your savings and how much of your savings you're going to have to pull. And then I would say from there, well, you can figure out how long based on that it will last. And you can see if it's going to work for you. It is math. And I know sometimes those answers aren't exactly what we want them to be, but all we can do is be armed with the information. And then we can find ways to fix if there is an issue, if it's not worked out the way you want it to. There's always a way to fix it. There's always a way to offset it and do that. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to say bye and thank you. This will be posted to the website tomorrow and emailed out. I would also like to say that there'll be a survey coming out. If you fill out the survey, we're going to give you a little Amazon gift card, I believe. It helps us uh, really continue to form and mold this a little bit better in terms of the delivery of it. Um, it's difficult to find a really good combination of not where we're not doing something live every single time, but to have that combination of how they are. The most important thing is that you all have access to my information. Please feel free to reach out and call me at any time. Not just about this little course that we did, but really about your own particular stuff. And I'll help you in any way I can. I'll give you my best advice. It doesn't cost you anything, and and that's really what it's all about. And we're here to help you guys. So thank you for participating. There's no more questions. We'll see y'all soon. Bye.